Dear students, let us discuss a very important topic in physiology, regulation of body temperature. As we all know, there are two types of animals, homeothermic and poikilothermic. We human beings, just like birds and mammals, are homeothermic, that is, warm-blooded animals. Our body temperature remains constant despite the changes in environmental temperature. While reptiles, amphibians, they are poikilothermic, their body temperature fluctuates as per the surroundings. So how we can maintain our body temperature nearly constant? That is our today's topic of discussion. Our normal body temperature remains between 36 to 37.5 degrees Celsius or 97 to 99.5 degree in Fahrenheit. Now there are two terms, core temperature and surface temperature. The temperature of the deep tissues of our body is called core temperature. It remains nearly constant, while surface temperature is temperature of the skin and superficial tissues. It may fluctuate as per the surroundings. So our average core temperature is normally between 98 to 98.6 degree Fahrenheit when we measure orally, and it will be 1 degree Fahrenheit more when we measure it rectally. Now, how heat is balanced, how our body temperature is balanced. So we can gain the heat, we can lose the heat to maintain the balance. So what are the mechanisms of heat gain and what are the mechanisms of heat loss? Let us discuss. So we can gain the heat in two ways, either by heat production in the body itself or by gaining the heat from the environment. We can lose the heat by three mechanisms: heat loss from the skin, heat loss from the lungs, and heat loss in excreta, that is urine and stool. Now in heat gain mechanism, first part, production of the heat by body, which is also called thermogenesis. So how thermogenesis happens inside the human body? There are many mechanisms like basal rate of metabolism of all the cells. It is also called BMR. So even though we are in the resting condition, our body cells constantly produce heat. Second is activity of the muscles. So when we do any physical work, we produce the heat inside the muscles. Then few hormones like thyroid hormones, growth hormone and testosterone, they increase our basic metabolic rate and produce heat. Then you all know autonomic nervous system, sympathetic stimulation, action of epinephrine and norepinephrine in producing the heat. And the last one, thermogenic effect of food. Now in the food we have carbohydrate, proteins and fat. This is especially important for proteins. Another term is specific dynamic action. So in thermogenic effect, what happens when we consume the proteins? During the digestion, absorption of the proteins, there is enormous amount of the heat produced, which is called thermogenic effect. So these are the various mechanisms of heat production. Now, how we gain the heat from the environment? There are four ways: radiation, conduction, ingestion of the hot fluids and food like tea, coffee, and ventilation in hot climates. The radiation and conduction we will discuss in the detail in heat loss section. Now, in heat loss mechanisms, there are three ways: heat loss from the skin, from the lungs, or in excreta. Now, very important topic for our discussion is heat loss from the skin. There are four ways: radiation, conduction, convection, and evaporation. Now, this radiation, conduction, and convection, they are also involved in heat gain mechanisms. They depend upon external environmental temperature. So, let us discuss these four mechanisms in detail. Now, this single diagram, single picture is explaining all the four mechanisms. You can see a lady is standing at a sea coast. Now, let us start with the radiation. Radiation means in the form of infrared rays, we can lose the heat or we can gain the heat. It depends upon external temperature. Here the lady is gaining the heat via radiation from sun and from surface of the hot water. Similarly, radiation may also come from sand. Okay, so we can lose the heat or we can gain the heat from the sand via infrared rays. Second one is conduction. Conduction means in direct contact. If we are in direct contact with any object, here it is sand, we can lose the heat or we can gain the heat depending upon object's body temperature. Third one is convection. Now, there is a minute difference between conduction and the convection. In the convection, we are in direct contact with the object like conduction, but the object will constantly renew. Means here the example is cool breeze. So new air which is cool will constantly replace the old air surrounding your body. So you will lose the heat very rapidly via convection, or you may gain the heat very rapidly via convection. And last one is evaporation. We all know sweating. When our surrounding temperature is more than our body temperature, sweating will start. There will be evaporation of the water from our skin surface, and that will help in losing the heat. Let us revise. Radiation means loss of the heat as infrared radiation. Another example is the coals in the fire will give off radiant heat. Second is conduction, exchange of the heat between the objects which are in direct contact with each other, like bottom of the feet and the floor. Convection, transfer of the heat between body and the air or water, here like cool breeze. And last one is evaporation, conversion of the water from a liquid to a gas, like evaporation of the water from the body surface. So I think now this is clear. Another example of conduction, convection, evaporation and radiation. Here you can see a person is sitting in a room on a bench. So how he will exchange the heat and in how much proportion is shown in this diagram. You can see maximum contribution is by radiation, 60% in the form of infrared rays. Then conduction may be in the air, which is in direct contact with his skin, or maybe a bench on which he is sitting. So conduction to the air contribute 15%, conduction to the object, that is a chair or a stool, contribute 3%. Then air currents like convection, and last is the evaporation is shown, which will contribute 22%. Now evaporation is subdivided into two types: insensible and sensible. Insensible means we are not aware of that type of evaporation. It will occur from the lungs or from the skin, and we can lose the heat at a rate of 16 to 19 calories in an hour. While sensible means what we call sweating, means we are aware of that 0.58 calorie of the heat is lost for each gram of the water that evaporates. Now, what is important thing in evaporation is it is the only means of heat loss when temperature of the surrounding is more than temperature of the skin. While other three, radiation, conduction and convection, they will not help you when surrounding temperature is more than your body temperature. Paradoxically, you will gain the heat, while only evaporation will save your life by losing the heat. Now coming to control of the body temperature. In our brain, there is an area, hypothalamus. In autonomic nervous system, we have discussed the role of hypothalamus. So, in hypothalamus, the anterior part, especially the preoptic area, it contains large number of heat sensitive neurons as well as few cold sensitive neurons. While posterior hypothalamus and reticular substance of the midbrain contains large number of cold sensitive neurons. Now, who will tell the hypothalamus regarding body temperature? So, they are the receptors present everywhere in our body. Like in the skin, we have both type of the receptors, cold and warmth receptors, but cold receptors are more in number. Then deep body temperature receptors present in the spinal cord, various abdominal organs, great veins in our abdomen and thorax. In these areas also, cold receptors are more in number. Now these receptors will send the signal to posterior hypothalamus, which will also receive the signal from preoptic area and then integrate to produce appropriate response. So what will be the appropriate response will be decided by hypothalamus. Now if your body temperature needs to decrease, what hypothalamus will do? So these are called temperature decreasing mechanisms. First is vasodilatation. Vasodilatation of blood vessels, especially of the skin. So it will increase the amount of heat transfer from core of the body to skin as much as 8 times. Second thing which we have already discussed is sweating. So increase the rate of evaporating heat loss when the body temperature rises. And 1 centigrade increase in the body temperature induces sufficient sweating to remove 10 times the basal rate of heat production. Along with the vasodilatation and sweating, there will be parallel inhibition of other mechanisms which increases the heat production, like shivering and chemical thermogenesis. We will discuss it later on. So these are the diagrams of vasodilatation and sweating. See, in the vasodilatation, our skin blood vessels will dilate, so more blood will come there and heat will lose across the skin into surrounding environment. Now the second diagram is of sweat glands. You can see this is the main glandular part and this is the duct. So sweat secretion mainly consists of water, sodium and chloride. So as per the requirement, we can produce sweating and we can lose the heat. Now what are the temperature increasing mechanisms? Starting with vasoconstriction. So it is just opposite to vasodilatation. So due to vasoconstriction, less blood will reach to the body surface. So less amount of the heat loss. Second is piloerection. Now this mechanism is not very effective in our case. It is effective especially in animals. So because we don't have sufficient amount of the body hairs like animals, what happens in the piloerection, due to erection of the body hair, there will be insulation of the surface of the body by air, and which will help in heat increasing mechanisms. Then increase in the thermogenesis. Sympathetic stimulation, which releases epinephrine and norepinephrine, will do uncoupling of oxidative phosphorylation, and it will release the energy in the form of heat. It is also called chemical thermogenesis. Now here important thing is uncoupling of oxidative phosphorylation. In biochemistry, you have seen oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria, which liberates energy. Now when uncoupling occurs, less amount of the energy is produced in the form of adenosine triphosphate and more amount of the heat is produced, which will help you to increase body temperature. Then in thermogenesis, second factor is increase in the thyroxine secretion. You see, it is especially important during exposure to cold. And the last is very important, that is shivering. We all know we do shiver when the winter months are there and we have not wear sufficient amount of woolens. So this shivering may be life-saving. It will increase the rate of heat production by 4 to 5 fold. So it is very effective mechanism of heat gain. So this diagram is showing vasoconstriction and piloerection. Piloerection is not important in our case. Vasoconstriction is very important. It is just opposite to vasodilatation. Less blood is reaching towards the skin surface, so less amount of the heat will be exchanged between body and environment. Something about chemical thermogenesis. So it is the ability of epinephrine and norepinephrine to uncouple oxidative phosphorylation. So when the food stuff is oxidized, energy is released in the form of heat rather than ATP. Now this chemical thermogenesis is mainly seen in brown fat. Brown fat is mainly present in infants, and this is a special type of fat having special type of mitochondria with strong sympathetic innervation, they have beta 3 type of receptors. Now something about shivering. The primary motor center for the shivering is located in dorsomedial portion of the posterior hypothalamus. It is normally inhibited by signals from the heat center in preoptic area, and it is excited by cold signals from the skin and spinal cord. Now what it will do, it increases the tone of skeletal muscles by facilitating the activity of the anterior motor neurons. So due to increase in the tone of muscles, there will be increase in heat production. Now this set point part and remaining part of the body temperature regulation I will cover in part 2 of this lecture. Thank you.